And now, in studio, bringing his Midwest values from the Show Me State to the land of San Diego. He's a triple threat, licensed as an attorney, mortgage broker, and a top producing realtor who's crushing the competition. Here to deliver you what's happening in the trenches of the market. Your host, Michael Gaddis.
Welcome back to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis at michaelgaddis.com and frontierloangroup.com. And as I mentioned before the break, we have a very special guest. We have Char Margolis, who is an internationally renowned intuitive medium on the line. Char, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, absolutely. So, Char, why don't you start by telling us what exactly is an intuitive medium? What does an intuitive medium do?
Everybody has intuition. Everybody gets gut feelings. And so when I read for people, because I do private sessions and I do group sessions, and what I do is I help people, I pick up on them because sometimes they don't listen to their own intuition, so I can help them prevent problems and attain goals in their lives. But I also teach this, and I teach people to listen to that sixth sense that we all have. And how many times everybody listening out there, you wanted something. Maybe it was a business deal, a romance, a friendship, but your first gut feeling was be careful, don't do it. But then you started talking to the person and you had things in common and there was a chemistry. And so you thought, oh, well, this isn't so bad. But then as time goes on, you suffer the consequences because it proves that your first gut was right about the person. What I do is teach people to be aware of that. Has that happened to you, Michael?
Well, I've had a couple incidents happen to me recently that are a little bit unusual. One is I had when I was young, when I was about 25 years ago, I had a girlfriend. And she had a grandparent, and I liked the guy a lot. I mean, I thought he was really, really nice man. And he, we broke up, and I forgot all about him, and I wasn't, and I had just kind of was like one day, I think it was about 2 or 3 months ago, I was just thinking, I was like, boy, all of a sudden he just popped in my head. And so I thought, I'm going to Google him because he was from Jefferson City, Missouri, and he was a disc jockey down there, and he had a very catchy name, his name was Johnny Music, but it sounded like Johnny Music, so he went by Johnny Music. So I Google him, and I find out that he had just passed away a couple days before that.
Okay, that's your intuition, but also you asked me what a medium is. Well, a medium is somebody who is the conduit between the spirit world and the living. So you actually were being a medium for him.
Oh, wow.
Because he was contacting you. So, I do this work to help people take away fear of death by knowing we see our loved ones again when we pass over to the other side, and fear of living by knowing that we all have intuition. Now, you had a gut feeling. You felt his energy, and everybody has their own unique energy thumbprint. And you had a connection with him, and even though you weren't related to him or knew him well, there was something in the energy around you that you were picking up on. It's kind of like when you try to tune into a radio station. You have to find that exact spot on the radio so you know that you're hearing things clearly. And that's exactly what you were doing. You were channeling that energy for some reason, which I think is really sweet. And it's more than coincidence that you Googled him and he just died.
Yeah.
Because you're open to this. God bless you. Good for you. You're open to this because when we're open to the spirit world, our guardian angels, our spirit guides, our loved ones can help guide us in our lives so that we can prevent problems.
Wow. Well, how did you realize that you had this gift? How did you realize that you had this skill? I mean, how does this happen? I think the best thing that happened to me was I came from an amazing family where my parents were loving and kind and generous and good, and two older sisters
And I was the youngest and, 9 and 13 years older than me. And I was like, I could do no wrong. And when I was like 4 years old, my dad went grocery shopping with me. And we came home and my mom always looked over the bill. And I said, Mom, I think that lady cheated us. Now, I barely knew how to count, let alone add. And my mom looked over the bill and the woman overcharged us. And so we called that place the Cheaters from then on. But 2 weeks later, my mom took me to lunch. I was this fat kid who loved to eat. I still love to eat. I'm not so skinny. But we were out to eat, and the woman brought us the bill. And this was only 2 weeks later. I said, Mommy, I think that lady cheated us. Now, my mom looked at the bill, and the woman overcharged us 10 cents. Now, 10 cents when I was a little girl was a lot more money than it is now.
Right.
And the great thing about my parents was they didn't say stop lying, stop making up stories. They were very open to things that I said. And then when I was 8 years old, our house was broken into. And the crawl space attic was in my bedroom. And about 2 weeks after our house was broken into, I woke up in the middle of the night and there was a translucent figure at the foot of my bed, a man in rags. And I was scared to death and I was pinching myself, and I woke up the next morning and I said, Mommy, I think the burglars were here again. And so she said, no, honey, that wasn't the burglars. They're not here anymore. It was the Sandman. Where my mother came up with that, I have no idea. But I thought that they were like hiding in my closet from when they broke into the house. And so, long story short, they always listened, and I was always right.
Wow. But isn't that a little bit strange? I mean, for you to grow up seeing things like that. I mean, how does that affect you? Scared me to death. I had to have someone stand in the room till I fell asleep at night. I had to have the light on. When my parents worked, and when they had a furniture store, and when they came home, like the housekeeper would leave, and I would be home for 2 hours on my own on a bright sunny day. I would go into the den, close both doors, turn the TV on, and pull down the shades because I felt someone was looking in at me, because I was feeling an energy of somebody not knowing what it is. So I lived my life. So I was living my life in a bit of fear, but then when I heard about people, I didn't even know there was a spirit world. But then I met people who were involved in spiritual things when I was in college. And that's when I started to understand what I was doing, what I was seeing. And there was a stranger that somebody said, you should read for them. And I was like, automatically, I was able to tell them names and situations and things about their lives that there's no way I could have known about. And I had an epiphany that moment that this was my life's work. This is what I'm supposed to do, and I've dedicated my life to it ever since. Wow. I mean, that's it's kind of like that movie, The Sixth Sense. Remember that little boy in that movie? I mean, I
see dead people.
Yeah, and you had that kind of visions too, and you could see how terrified the boy was. I mean, in the movie, just to go around anywhere, just to see that kind of stuff is terrifying, and especially when you have older people, the adults around that don't believe you.
Right, but what I was saying is that in my case, my dad was very psychic. My mom was a wise soul, and they listened to me and they helped me.
They embraced your gift. They basically allowed you to flourish instead of repressing you and saying, "Oh, it's just your imagination. You're not." And they kind of nurtured it.
Right, exactly. And so I was very blessed to do it, but it was like, I was in college. I got a teaching degree in secondary education, and actually my minor is English, which is good because I've written a few books. But it was interesting because I didn't even know there was a spirit world. Like kids now, people are so much more open to this and accepting, and there's psychics, that are out there. But I was really the first, they called me the first TV psychic. I mean, I was out there infiltrating this work 40 years ago, over 40 years ago, and going on morning shows in local cities, doing this and reading for people, and then I'd kind of sit back because, I mean, I don't know if you know John Edward, but he had a TV show some years ago, and he and his mom used to watch me when he was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he told me stories about how, TV shows I forgot I was even on. And before there was a Tyler Henry, before there was a Monica the Medium, seriously, I was the one in there that was infiltrating this work to help people understand that this exists, because a lot of people think this goes against their religion. And in some ways, I will say this. I understand that philosophy, and the truth is, in the spirit world, there's good and evil. And so you have to be really careful if you're delving in this work, because I've worked very hard at keeping everything positive, and I say prayers before I read for people, because I am positive that there's good and bad over there. And I only allow positive healing energy to come around me. I won't read for people. I just turned down a big thing with rock star people who wanted to fly me out, and there was, no limit on what they would pay me, but I knew there were drugs around it, and I wouldn't do the reading. They were sending a private jet. They wanted me really badly, and I said no. Wow.
Well, it's kind of like opening doors. You just got to make sure that you're opening the right doors and not the wrong doors. I guess it's kind of like. Well, Char, here we're going to go to break right now. Can you stay with us and come back after break? I have a lot more questions for you. So,
okay, I'd love to.
All right. So after the break, we're going to continue our conversation with Char Margolis, international intuitive medium. So you're listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer.
AM 1170, The Answer.